Welcome to Fiscal Integrity Group, your ticket to bookkeeping greatness.
Welcome to maintenance steps you should all be performing. Well, it's really important that if you want to be a great bookkeeper, you want to take control and own your file, or files if you're a freelance bookkeeper. Let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. So what I'm talking about today is the stuff that's behind the scenes and doesn't really have anything to do with the day-to-day bookkeeping. But these are all your listings, and some of them just need to be updated and have some maintenance done on them every once in a while. And some of them, like your item listing and your payroll listing, that actually has to do with your accuracy to the file, and they're important to take a look at every once in a while. And the last thing here is the closing date. You want to protect the file, you want to protect closed months and closed years. So this is the stuff that we're going to look at, and then what I would like you to look at every once in a while is to go in behind the scenes and take a look. I've opened up my QuickBooks sample company, and the first listing I want to do some maintenance on is my account listing. Two quick ways of finding your chart of accounts is if you have the home page open, I can come over to company and there's my chart of accounts right there. If you like using the toolbar instead, you can come over to lists, and there it is right here, and now I've clicked on it. So there's things that you can do that are on a maintenance level, or you just maybe want to change and update the account listing. You can do things throughout the year, and sometimes when you are doing maintenance and you want to tidy it up a bit, you leave it to year end. But I usually do look at my account listing, and if there's any accounts that I have not used over the year, I will get rid of them. I'll make them inactive. For example, if I take a look at my Royal Visa Gold, I see that it's a zero balance. I double click just to see when it was last used, and it's 2013. So then I think, okay, well, why would I continue to look on this or at this if I'm not going to use it? So I can right click and make it inactive. Now, if you're afraid that you might make a mistake and try to delete the account, a warning is going to come up because it's trying to protect previous year financials. So any account that has activity in it will not be allowed to be deleted, because then you're changing previous year financials. So it will allow you to make it inactive. I'm going to cancel it here, and I'm just going to say right click, and you can do make inactive right here, and it is removed from your active listing. If I come down to account, the icon to the left down here, the same drop down bar will come up as if I did a right click. So that's easy, and very easy if you want to make these changes. Now, what happens if your business owner comes along and says, okay, I want to start using that credit card again. Let's get it back on the account listing. All you have to do is be down here on the account icon and click Show Inactive Accounts. And now you will see all the inactive accounts over the years that were in use but are not in use any longer. And if I want to make the Royal Visa Gold active again, I just take my cursor over top of the X, click, and now it is active again. And I can come along and hide inactive accounts, and now we're back to the nice clean account listing that we're used to. And that's pretty much it when it comes to making accounts inactive or active. Just remember, you cannot delete an account that has activity in it. Okay, so the next thing would be, what about account numbers? I don't know, nowadays, years and years ago, there was always account numbers on a file. Lately, in the last decade, I see that there isn't always account numbers being used. So that's a choice. That's a choice between the bookkeeper, and that's a choice between the accountant. So if you want to have numbers, so for example, you've inherited a file, and you want to add numbers to the file, it would be Edit, Preferences, Accounting, Company, and turn it on. Okay. So all you have to do now is add your numbers. So I have a few numbers here that I added before, and then there's some defaults that come in. And what you have to do is manually go through and add your numbers. The reason why they just don't automatically come up and there's a numbering, a set of numbers, is because every country is different. Sometimes just 4 numbers, sometimes just 3 numbers. Some people use go by tens, some go by fives, and so everybody's got a different way of setting the numbers on an account listing, so it's best that you customize and do it the way that you like it or the accountant likes it. So all you have to do is, when it comes to adding numbers, you'd right click, edit, and I might take this down to 1,000. And that's about it. Right click, 1010, right click, that's a 1020, and you would go on and go on and go on the way you would wish to do it. Okay, if I wanted to get rid of the numbers, maybe I wanted to renumber it because I don't like the way it's numbered, then I can just come in and change them or take the numbers off completely. When I'm rescuing a file or when I'm cleaning up a file and it's really messy, sometimes I will take the numbers off the account listing and clean up the account listing, update it, and then I'll put the numbers back on. So these guys here are defaults for receivables, undeposited funds. There's an HST here, sales tax, and there's some equity that have default numbers. Okay, so you can use numbers, you can change numbers, you can take them off, modify them, and do whatever you want with this account listing, and it's really not going to do a whole hell of a lot to your financials. You're not really going to screw up the file all that much. To add an account, you can very easily just say new, for example, income, or you pick your type. And there's other types down here when it comes to cost of goods or long-term liabilities and so forth. And you pick whatever type it is, for example, income, continue, and you just name the account and you're good to go. If I want to change the names around, for example, I don't want to see bank fee expense, maybe I just want to see bank fees. So it's very easy to go and change your names or add an account or make it inactive. The other thing that I want to mention here is maintenance of an account listing. So maybe you're a fan of sub-accounts and you want to tag some accounts under another account or a header. So I've just made up revenue accounts, and how that works is I'm going to treat this as the header, and I don't want any activity going in the header. And I want to take these revenue accounts and calculate under the header. So all I have to do is grab that diamond, excuse me, and push it under the header. And now these are sub-accounts. So I will see bookkeepers will bunch the revenue like this together, or sub-account revenue accounts under a header. I can see that with cost of goods. Many times I see it with if there's multiple insurances or multiple interests or multiple rents, for example. And so this way you're getting a total of the revenue on the income statement rather than individual sales. So I do see the sub-account being used quite a bit. The one thing I do want to caution you with is this header should not have any activity in it. if you're going to go this route and use sub-accounts, then all the activity is in these sub-accounts. And I do see errors being made and people are using this, and next thing you know on your GL, you'll see revenue account other, and that's the accounting program saying, but I need you to put it in one of these other accounts. So headers are not really to be used as an account. Okay, so that would be using sub-accounts, and you could do the same with cost of goods and any type of overhead, and that will redesign your income statement a little bit more. Another thing that I want to show you but caution you on is merging accounts. So for example, if I wanted to merge auto fuel and auto maintenance and auto mileage, because I don't want all three accounts any longer, I just want one. That is fine, but the caution here is you don't want to affect prior year statements, because that's going to change that income statement in prior years, and it's already been filed to the government. So you want to be cautious here. For the most part, it's not going to change the bottom line on those financials, but it will change the details of it. But just for now, I want to show you how it works. So I'm going to rename this guy auto expenses. Oops. And then I'm going to rename this guy expenses, the same thing. And now what's going to come up is the name is already in use. Would you like to merge them? And I just say yes. And I have password on the file, so I'll get past that. And the next one would be edit expenses. Oops. Expenses. You know you did something wrong. You didn't do it exact because it didn't ask you to merge. I merge. So all that activity that you have previously posted in all three of those is now into one. Fabulous quick way of merging, but I would caution you that you only do it in the current year and not affecting previous years. So if you created 3 auto accounts in the current year, and then later on, 6 months down the road, you go, I don't need all 3, I'll just bunch them together, then that is a quick merge, and it only affects the current year, and it is so fast to do this merge. Okay, so that's the maintenance side of an account listing. You want to be able to come in and fix a spelling error, or you want to be able to change the name of an account to a little bit more professional if you wish. You know now how to make things inactive or active, and you know how to do some sub-accounts. And that's really about the maintenance of an account listing. At least look at your account listing once a year and get rid of the ones that are not being used anymore. I'm going to pop out of this now and go back to the home page, and the next listing I'd like to discuss is your vendor listing. I can find it here on my home page, or I can go up to my toolbar and find the vendor center this way. The only thing I want to say with this one is, on occasion, come in here and make your suppliers inactive if you're no longer using them. This listing can get very, very long. So, once or twice a year, if you've got the time, do a little bit of maintenance. So to make things people inactive, you just go to the one that you want to make inactive, right click, make inactive. So this is a job that might only take an hour or two, depending on how long it is, but you can piece at this on days that you've got time to do so. If you're a freelance bookkeeper, you may ask a staff member to do this, or you just may let it go for a couple of years, but after a while you'll say, okay, I've got to do a little bit of maintenance. So example, if I go to the beer store here, the last time this was used was 2010, so we don't need to see it anymore, and we make it inactive. Now, what's interesting is if I went in to enter bills and I did put in the exact same name of your store, it will actually come up and say you have it inactive. Would you like to make it active again or only use it once? And then you use it once and it stays inactive, or if you're going to begin using it again, it will become active for you. It's a neat little feature there, so nothing disappears. You'll always be able to find it, and just like the account listing, I can hit active or all vendors, and now I've got all the inactives and I can make them active again. So very, very simple type of maintenance here, and you don't have to worry. You don't have to be frightened that you're going to do something wrong. It's kind of bulletproof here. And just like the account listing, if there's activity in the vendor name, then you cannot delete it. Here's a spot here where you can add new vendors, and all you have to do is if you're going to update addresses and phone numbers and such, you can pop in here and you can do all your updates. If you are a bookkeeper and you're 40 hours a week and you're full-time as an employee, you may use more of these functions here, as in payment settings, credit limit, sales tax defaults. I would use that as I was a freelancer as well. Account settings, sometimes you set things up and so it makes it easier when you are calling up a bill for the vendor and the expense account is already defaulted, so that's kind of neat to do. So you might do that type of maintenance. If you're an inherited file, you may prefer to do all this extra work so it makes it easier down the road. So all I'm saying here with a vendor is look at it. Look at this listing every once in a while and try and shorten it to the vendors you're not using anymore and make them inactive. If you are handwriting checks in some parts of the world, everybody's jaw just dropped because nobody handwrites checks anymore in many places. But I see checks being handwritten all the time here in Canada. So if you're still handwriting checks and you're going to move to printed checks, that's absolutely fine. But you would maybe come in here and start putting addresses into all of these spaces and updating the information, because when you print checks, the address is usually there and you put it in a windowed envelope. So that is something to think about. If you're going to go that route, you would update your vendor listing. And that's all I really want to say about this, is take a look every once in a blue moon and see if you can do something about making it shorter. When it comes to your customer listing, it's exactly the same thing that I'm talking here. So if I got out of this and went back to the home page, my customer listing is right here, or I could go up to my toolbar and go to my customer center there. So exactly the same thing, the exact same ways of making changes, and right-clicking to make things inactive, make customer job inactive, and it is all the same thing. You can actually see here when you last used this customer and make the listing much shorter. Same situation here where you could add a new customer and you can modify a customer here as well, just by coming in and changing the addresses and the settings and so forth. So I'm not going to get too much into this listing because it's exactly the same as what I was just talking about with vendors. Again, once in a while, pop in here and see if you can make your vendor listing a lot shorter by making customers that are long gone inactive. It is very simple to add or edit an item. You can just come down here to this icon and pick up the menu. There is new. You can make it a service. You could say bookkeeping. So you can name it. You could actually put in a default description that will show up on the invoice every time you pick this item. Pick your taxes or no taxes if you're in another country, and pick your account, and it's all set. Every time this item comes up, it knows exactly where it's going, which would be the revenue account bookkeeping. If I want to edit an item, I could come into bookkeeping, for example, the one I just did. I can right click, edit, and maybe I want to say services. So I think if you are looking at all the lists that we have talked about so far in this webinar, you will notice that it's very easy to modify, change, add, and make inactive in all your listings. Let's move on to another listing called Payroll Item Listing, and that will still be on the toolbar, and it's about halfway down on the menu. And if you are managing payroll, then this is a whole back end that you want to make sure that is working properly. Very easy to add an item or make an item inactive. If I wanted to make an owner bonus inactive, I just have to right click and make it inactive. If I want to add a new item, then I will just automatically go down to this corner, hit add a new item, and then I start going through the prompts. So if I wanted to add hourly or some sort of a wage, I would hit next, hourly wages, or I could also make it an annual salary, or is somebody getting a commission? And I just follow the prompts, regular pay. I will name it. So maybe this is hourly overtime. So depending on the file, the company, the industry, you could get very heavy into having many, many items here. I would say next. Now, what I would do here is QuickBooks here in Canada will tag all the expenses into one account, payroll expenses. I don't really like it that way. I'd like to see, for Canadian payroll, I like to see my Canada Pension Plan company portion in a separate account. I like to see my unemployment company portion in a separate account, and I like to see my wages, regular or management, in separate accounts. So it depends on how you set up the file and how you like to see it will determine if it's going to be more than one account. So I don't pick payroll expenses where it all gets bunched together. I actually will come up to cost of goods sold, and I will pick the wages right there. And now you're going to say to me, Sandy, why do you have payroll and cost of goods sold? Well, this particular file required it. If there was any cost to the sales, it was staff. So it made sense, and I always talk to the accountant about things, but sometimes you do put payroll up in cost of goods sold if it is direct cost to those sales. So it's interesting when you bookkeep. I can't even imagine how many files I've been on where I've had payroll and overhead, and I've had payroll and cost of goods sold. So here you can see as well that I have separate expenses for workers' comp, for any bonuses, EI, CPP, and the wages. So that's how you can break out your account listings to actually be able to analyze and manage the file in a really nice way that you can actually monitor costs the way you should per file. So I'm going to just pick wages here, and I'm going to go next. Usually I pick the defaults, and I finish, and now I have an hourly overtime. And so depending if I'm project costing, where, as I just said, payroll might be in cost of goods as well as overhead. So if I was project costing here, I may have salary and hourly set up in cost of goods, and then I may have different ones named in overhead for management. So it's really interesting. Depending on the file you're working will determine how complex this will be. At the same time, if I actually come into a brand new file, what QuickBooks does is they set up a lot of items. And so when I come into a brand new file, or I've just started up a new company and it does have payroll, I will come in and get rid of some of the ones that I know I'm not going to use. So this again is some maintenance. And since I'm in Ontario, for some reason there's always a Quebec items on the payroll list, so I immediately make those inactive. And anything else that I don't think I'm going to need, I make inactive. So this is a very important item listing that you at least want to make sure is set up properly and that everything is tagged the way it should be tagged. Okay? Now I'm going to move over to a nicer, simpler listing called Memorized Reports. So if I go into Reports, my Memorized Report list, this is where I customize anything I want to analyze. So I may have profit and loss by month, profit and loss year to date with percentage, profit and loss previous year comparison. So anytime I go to a report icon and I come over to company financial, and if I want to memorize any one of these, it is wonderfully stuck here. And then when I open it up, I'm just going to grab a balance sheet. All I have to do is change the date, say for the next month, hit refresh, and memorize, and it will remember that date. All I have to do is replace the old one. And so I like using memorized report listings because it makes my analysis faster and simpler. So for example, the general ledger here is all nice and neat and clean, but it doesn't come that way. If I went to a regular general ledger, down here and under accountant and taxes, and there's the general ledger, it comes with all kinds of extra columns, and it doesn't really look all that great, and it's not exactly easy to read. So many times I will come and design the way I want to see it, and so I move my columns around and I get rid of the things that I don't necessarily care about seeing, because I like to look at my general ledger all on one screen, so I play around with it. And if I take it back to 2015, okay, and then I'll work my way down. I can't stand seeing dots. I want to be able to read the entire thing. And if I work my way down and there's another set of memos that need to be widening, and I don't think this date needs to be all that wide, and I can open this up. So I just want to play with this once, and then I will memorize it. And that way I don't have to come in here and fix these columns all the time. And see all these zeros? So these are accounts that are never being used anymore. So I could come into Custom Report, hit Advanced, and only the ones in use. So at this moment in time, when I open up a brand new GL, it's going to give me active and inactive accounts. So just by coming to Custom Reports, Advanced, just the ones in use, it will get rid of all these zeros. And there you have a nicer looking GL. And now I come up to Memorize. I can put it in any group I wish. And I'll put it under Employees because I know there's one. There we go. And so when I go back to Memorize Reports, and the one I just made, voila, it's good to go. And all you have to do is change the dates and then rememorize it if you wanted to come in to the year 2016. And there we go. And that's all you have to do. So the one thing I do here with Memorize List, and why I'm bringing this up, when you're managing the files, so you want to manage your payables, you want to manage your outstanding receivables. Who do you owe money to? Who owes you money? So when you're looking at this stuff and your bookkeeping and you're doing full cycle bookkeeping,
You're going into the general ledger to make sure that you don't have any posting errors. You're updating these reports for the business owner or their professionals that they're working with. And it's so easy to come in here and you're not always flipping around and redesigning the reports. These are great to use, they're easy to use, and all you have to do is most of the time just change the date. And so that's the memorized report listing, and you can come in here and customize all kinds of reports. Sometimes I get a little technical on customizing them because a client has asked me a question and I have to think about how I want to create this report. And sometimes I forget how I created it. So memorizing it, it's always there. And so don't forget about this. It's a great tool to manage your file. Okay, so our final item on this knowledge nugget is how to password your file so you can make sure that once a month is closed or a year is closed, nothing changes. I have mentioned this in another knowledge nugget, but just in case you haven't listened to that one, I'm going to do it again here. So a little bit of maintenance here when you're trying to protect your numbers. You can come into Edit, Preferences, Company, and set your password. You can put a closing date in here and put a password in there. And that's all you have to do. There's another spot that you can find as well. You can find the same thing under Company, Set Users and Passwords. And I have to put my password in as an admin person to get in. And the same spot is right here, Closing Date. So this is used for, and I really wish that more bookkeepers would use this, but the old-fashioned accounting is when you close off a month end, then it should be closed and it shouldn't be touched after that, especially when other people have looked at the numbers, they're analyzing and making business decisions on those numbers, and nothing like coming back in and changing them. And then it just makes for a bit of a mess, especially for your sales tax remittances. Nothing like filing to the government by the due date, and next thing you know, you have a completely different set of numbers when it's time to look at your balance sheet for the next remittance. That's very common here in Canada. I'm not too sure how common it is around the world, but we do have definite challenges when it comes to posting in after months are closed, and even challenges after years are closed and the year end has gone off to the accountant and been filed to the government. So I would 100% use this function to protect the numbers once I feel that they're closed. That's it for this knowledge nugget. It was all about looking after and maintaining your listings. I hope that was informative for you and you can take it back to the real world. So keep crunching those numbers and have fun bookkeeping.
Fiscal Integrity Group, your home for the advancement of bookkeeping and bookkeepers.